Ragav was a young man living in a small village near Vishnupur. He was hardworking, honest, and always dedicated to his work. However, one habit constantly made him unhappy. He always compared himself to others. Whenever he saw his friend Karen, who was always the top student, Ragav thought, "I wish I were as smart as him." When he saw his wealthy neighbor Cedar, he sighed, "If only I had as much money as he does." Even when he saw someone running fast, he wished he could run just like them. Gradually, these thoughts made Ragav's life more and more disappointing. He couldn't focus on his studies because he always felt inferior to others. Even at work, he lost motivation, believing he could never be as good as those around him. Day by day, his self-doubt grew stronger. He began to feel inadequate and incapable of success. His jealousy blinded him to the blessings he already had. Ragav's life slowly sank into disappointment, and he had no idea how to free himself from this feeling. He didn't realize that constantly comparing himself to others was holding him back, until one day, when a wise saint arrived in the village with a lesson that would change his perspective forever. One day, a renowned saint came to Ragav's village. He was known for his deep wisdom and for helping people understand life's greatest truths. Hearing about the saint, Ragav decided to seek his advice. When they met, he shared his struggles. "Guru Dev, I work very hard, but whenever I see someone better than me, I feel sad. I feel like I will never be as successful as they are. Please help me overcome this problem." The saint smiled and said, "Come to the oldest tree in the village tomorrow morning. There, you'll find your answer." Ragav found this strange, but decided to follow the saint's advice. The next morning, as the sun rose, Ragav arrived at the old tree. The saint was already waiting for him. He pointed toward the forest and asked, "What do you see?" Ragav looked around and replied, "I see different kinds of trees. Some are very tall, some are short. Some bear lots of fruit, while others do not." The saint smiled and said, "If this mango tree started comparing itself to the coconut tree and complained that it is not as tall, or if the coconut tree complained that it doesn't bear sweet fruit like the mango tree, would that make sense?" Ragav shook his head. "No, that would be foolish." The saint nodded and said, "Every tree has its own purpose. Humans are the same. Do not compare yourself to others. Focus on your own journey." Although Ragav understood part of the lesson, he still had doubts. Sensing this, the saint led him to a nearby pond where many fish were swimming. The saint pointed at a bird flying above and asked, "If this fish complained that it cannot fly like the bird, would that be fair?" Ragav shook his head. "Not at all. Fish are meant to swim in water, while birds are made to fly in the sky." The saint smiled and said, "Then why do you wish to be someone else? You have unique strengths that others do not. You just need to focus on developing yourself." Hearing this, Ragav had a moment of realization. He understood that every person has their own mission and abilities. Comparing oneself to others only leads to suffering and offers no real benefit. From that day on, he stopped comparing himself to others and started focusing on his own strengths. Ragav gained confidence, found joy in his life, and slowly achieved the success he never thought possible. After learning this valuable lesson from the saint, Ragav decided to change his mindset. He no longer compared himself to others, but instead focused on improving his own abilities. Gradually, his confidence returned. Instead of wishing for someone else's talents or wealth, he made use of what? Never compare yourself to others. If a fish tries to fly, it will always fail. But if it hones its swimming skills, it can rule the entire ocean. Everyone has their own value. Focus on your strengths, and you will find your own path to success. Ragav realized that every person's journey has its own meaning. Just like the sun and the moon, each shines at its own time. Comparing yourself to others only robs you of confidence and joy. Instead of wishing to be someone else, Ragav learned to appreciate what he had. He focused on developing his skills and using his strengths to achieve success. This not only made him happier, but also gave him a strong sense of motivation in his work. Thanks to his persistence and effort, Ragav built an admirable life. He became someone people in the village looked up to and learned from. Whenever someone asked him about the key to success, Ragav simply said, "Do not compare yourself to others. Instead, focus on your own journey. If you harness your strengths, you will create a meaningful and successful life in your own way." Ragav understood that comparing himself to others only led to insecurity and confusion. Life is not a race to become someone else, but a journey to become the best version of yourself. He realized that each person is unique, just like the sun and the moon. Both shine at their own time. If a fish tries to fly like a bird, it will always fail. But if it focuses on swimming, it can master the ocean. From a moment he stopped comparing himself and started focusing on self-improvement, Ragav felt happier and more driven. By working with his passions and strengths, he achieved greater success than he had ever imagined. Now, whenever someone asks him about his secret to success, Ragav simply smiles and says, "Stop comparing yourself to others. Focus on your journey, develop your strengths, and create your own path to success. That is when you will truly find happiness and meaning in life." Ragav realized that comparison only leads to self-doubt and steals the joy of life. Instead of wishing to be someone else, he understood that every individual has their own value and journey. Like the sun and the moon, each has its own time to shine. If a fish tries to fly like a bird, it will always fail. But if it focuses on swimming, it can rule the entire ocean. Since he stopped comparing himself to others, Ragav felt happier and more motivated. He focused on developing his skills and making the most of his own strengths. Instead of looking at others' success with envy, he learned to appreciate what he had and work towards self-improvement each day. Through persistence and continuous effort, Ragav achieved remarkable success. He built a stable career and became an inspiration to those around him. His story spread throughout the village, helping many people understand that happiness comes not from becoming someone else, but from developing oneself. Whenever someone asked him about his secret to success, Ragav gently replied, "Never compare yourself to others. Focus on your own journey, recognize your strengths, and keep growing. When you understand that you are unique and valuable in your own way, that is when you truly find happiness and success."